But many of you remember the blackouts and grabs that plagued California several years ago. For many of us, that was the first time we realized there was a problem. And many people, unfortunately today, think the problem's fixed. I'm talking about the problem with the power grid. Now, what is the power grid? The power grid is simply all things necessary for the production and distribution of electricity. Now, for those of you that don't understand what the heck I just said, that's the power plants, the power lines, and everything in between. So today in my speech, I would like to tell you where the problem is, why it's a problem, and what can be done, and is being done, to fix it. So first, where is the problem? Is it in the power plants? Is it in the power lines? Is it in us, the consumer? Which is what the power companies want us to believe. The answer to all these questions is yes. So let's start with the power plants. Currently, today, America is using 99% of its energy capacity, which means if a couple more businesses get built, we don't have enough power. On average, an American uses over 98,000 kilowatt hours a year. In case you're wondering what a kilowatt hour is, that's what they're charging you for. So, now where else is the problem? Is it with us consumers? The answer is yes. More and more things, year after year, are relying on electricity to run. I mean, everything's going digital. How many of you have old-fashioned clocks in your room? I'm betting most of you use digital clocks. I know I do. Now, where else is the problem? Is it the power lines? Yes. The fact of the matter is, most of the power lines, especially in the middle of the United States, are at capacity. Meaning, if you put any more electricity through them, poof. But why is that a problem? The fact of the matter is, the United States Census Bureau took a census in 2006, and they said that by 2050, there will be a 35% increase in people in the United States. What does that mean? That means if these 3 rows and half of this row is what we have currently, by the end of 50 years, we're going to have all the rest. That's a lot of people to add. A year later, they did another census, and that number bumped up to 45%. That's a lot of people. Also, there's no new power plants being built. The fact of the matter is, they're trying. They really are. But how many of you are going to vote for a nuclear power plant next to your house? How many of you are going to vote for a coal power plant next to your house? And the fact of the matter is, even though there are some that were voted for, wind power plants, which everybody loves, nobody can decide how to tie it into our power grid because nobody wants the unsightly power lines. Another problem we have is there's no viable way to store power. You can't just build huge batteries because those tend not to work very well, which is why they have this problem during peak hours when everybody's using electricity. They have no way of producing it. At night, when nobody's using electricity, they have no way of storing it because it doesn't store well. In the past 50 years, we've really come very little when it comes to batteries. But enough about the problems. What can be done to fix them? Well, first I'd like to start with what is being done. Power companies all over the United States are installing sensors all over so they can monitor everything. You're like, so what? What does that do? Well, if they monitor it and they see a problem coming, they can fix it before it blows up in their face, which hopefully will mean not as many blackouts anymore. Another thing they're doing is they're installing these special pump meters, which my family personally has, and it charges you less if you don't use it during peak hours, which is great. It's a good way to conserve. Another thing they're doing is the government created the Bureau of Conservation of Energy, and their entire job is to make sure companies are doing their part to conserve. Now, on a side note, they audited their own company. What they said was the #1 ways that companies can conserve power is by turning off computer monitors. Of the 15 monitors they have in their bureau office, not a single one was programmed to turn off. They failed their own audit. But what needs to be done? Frankly, our power lines need to be upgraded. But nobody wants to do that because nobody owns them. They're just kind of up for grabs. We also need new power plants. And on top of that, we need to all help conserve. But now you're asking, so what? What does this mean for you? Why did I tell you this? What's next? Well, the answer is you are. You are next. You are our voters and our future political and business leaders. And you're going to be the ones making the choice in the future whether or not to fix this problem or let it blow up in our faces. Thank you.